Hi, everyone, and welcome to our workshop, ChatGPT Prompt Engineering. The course is presented by members of the Levy Library team, but is created in collaboration with Scholarly and Research Technologies. This course is part of a series of workshops, 7 to be exact, that focus on different foundational areas of ChatGPT. There is a course called Foundations of ChatGPT, Prompt Engineering, in which you are in now, using ChatGPT for data analysis and visualization, and creating custom GPTs. There are 3 additional courses that are geared towards educators, how to guide students in the use of ChatGPT, incorporating ChatGPT into critical thinking assignments, and guiding students in the use of ChatGPT in research. To start us off today, we'd like to show you one example of prompt engineering, this time to make a visual image. The previous slide you saw had all 7 of our workshop series listed in a planets type of configuration. Our initial iteration was not human created, like the previous one you saw, but rather ChatGPT generated using the DALL-E model. So here our prompt was create me a roadmap similar to a board game of different courses that do not have to be taken in a linear way. Avoid using numbers for those courses. Make sure there are only 7 spaces. As you'll see here, this is probably a 3rd or 4th iteration, but still there are numbers or something that looks like numbers. There are 8 rather than 7 options. So it's not perfect. It really requires a human touch to both edit the outcome, but also to understand when to use it and when not to use it. We're going to touch on 3 learning objectives in today's workshop. 1, explain the concepts of prompt engineering and relevance in effectively interacting with ChatGPT. Next, demonstrate how to design clear, specific, and goal-oriented prompts. And finally, describe the process of prompt engineering and the role of the human in the process. Note that our course today does not focus on any one version, but rather is a general foundations course, focusing on the free version, possible individual paid versions, and also enterprise versions or EDU versions. So this course has broad implications across these various versions and does not focus on any one instance. Before we begin, let's dive into the question at the basis of this workshop. What is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering can be defined as the process of designing and optimizing input prompts to effectively guide a language model's responses. We asked ChatGPT, using a prompt, to give us an answer. So when we asked ChatGPT, what is prompt engineering? Describe in one sentence and a few bullet points, ChatGPT did just that. It answered the question posed to it. It provided one sentence and a few bullet points as the outcome. We have to understand that prompt engineering is not a one and done like you might have seen in the previous slide, but rather it's an iterative approach. So in this approach, you, the user, has expectations of what you would like ChatGPT or generative AI to do for you. And you ask the model to do that. That model produces an output. And they might be rather far apart. You refine your prompt, you add details, you correct the areas that were incorrect, and then you ask the model to do it again. And the model has an output that's closer to what your expectation was. Sooner or later, those outputs are going to come together. Possibly, or possibly they never will, like in our first example. But your process continues in having to iterate, verify, check, and maybe change some of the content that was produced. In order to fully understand the process of prompt engineering and the output that is created through our prompt engineering, we have to think about this as inference at an enormous scale. So take the sentence, "It is a beautiful day in the," and put that through a model. The model is going to guesstimate what the next most probable word will be. In this case, That word would be neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. You might have city and park as other high possibilities, sky as a lower possibility, but the highest probability would be neighborhood. And as such, that's what the next word would be. When we use large language models like ChatGPT, that's exactly the process that happens word after word after word on an enormous scale. Let's talk about this as it relates to foundations of strong prompts according to OpenAI. There are three strong foundations of a prompt. One is the task, second is context, and third is output. When we're thinking about a task, we want to give the large language model clear, specific tasks or goals. Explain the topic of prompt engineering, analyze the attached data. That's your task, that's your verb. The context would be what is your audience or what is your role? So give a persona and provide additional knowledge. Explain this topic to me as an AI expert. Explain this topic to me as a professor in a class. Explain this topic to me as someone new to the field, right? Or use this additional reference point or this additional information to process that. Output is what you would like. So, would you like an informal tone with bullet points? And after the description, include a table that gives product dimensions. Would you like an additional thing to be given to you? So, this would might also be explain this to me as if I'm a professor, which is your context, teaching somebody who is new to the course, which is your output. We also have to consider how privacy and training are used within the models. It is really important that the model not train that what you put into your instance of ChatGPT does not train the outside model. In the free version, you'd have, or the paid versions, you'd have to toggle that off. However, there are no guarantees, of course. In enterprise versions, there are stricter agreements. So we don't want that information going out. But there is a positive to training, and that is only within your instance. So when I log in as myself into my instance of ChatGPT, that model gets to know me and gets to know the type of corrections I've been giving it and the type of responses that I will require. There are two approaches to prompt engineering. The first is to provide all of your information up front. Think about this as front loading. Provide a detailed background for the prompt, front load instruction, and then refine as you go. The other is to provide some task background, share the task, but add details to the task as the answers evolve in a more iterative process. You might use the first approach when you really know exactly what you want, and you might use the second approach when some of the answers will guide your next steps. No matter what approach you use, you're going to need to make sure that you use the background of the human creator, right? The setting, that you need to make iterative changes, and you need to appraise and verify because there could be some errors in that prediction. In the first way, the main difference is that all of the information is provided upfront, and you may even choose to provide examples or samples of the work. In the second way, where it's a more iterative process from the start, information is provided in steps. It usually does not include examples, and you will have a less detailed output initially. Here's one example of writing a prompt that is well written. So we're going to present you with three examples overall, but let's start with the shortest prompt. Create a rubric for an assignment. It does not have a ton of detail, and it might not give you exactly what you want, but let's see what we get. Using that prompt, we would get an assignment rubric that has a lot of blanks, and insert this here, has a lot of criteria. I actually cut off a couple pieces at the bottom, and has several points for columns for the different areas that you could grade. This is a very non-specific example. In a better type of task, in a better type of prompt, you might write, you are a professor in a medical school. Create a rubric for an assignment that medical students can use where they have to write a reflection. Now here, you have an assignment objective, you have a title for the rubric, you have rubric criteria, you have 3 here, but you still have this thoughtfully analyzes. What does that mean to thoughtfully analyze something? Makes relevant connections, okay, clearly connects. What does that mean, and what are some examples of that? Now, the best output is you're a professor, or you'll get the best output by having this prompt. You are a professor in a medical school teaching a course on various topics that intersect with medicine, such as climate change and AI. Students in your class are first-year medical students who get to select the topic that they wish to study. The common thread is that all students must write a reflection that is no more than 2 pages in length, includes examples and tie back to the material and their lived experiences. Please create a rubric that is on a 3-point scale and assesses 3 categories. Please classify words that are abstract like thoughtfully or deep with more detail so that students and faculty grading can distinguish between categories. And now you have the criteria that you need that you mentioned. You have clearly and explicitly integrates course concepts with specific, well-described personal experiences, right? So you have more examples. You have a 1 to 3 scale for grading, and you might still need to tweak it, but you're much closer to a final product than we were initially. Feel free to pause the workshop and do this on your own. I'm now going to share with you a side-by-side example. So a short prompt that is approximately 10 words or less that has how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich gives you very basic non-specific steps, as you can see here on the left. If you take a more detailed prompt, you are a famous chef who owns a Michelin-starred restaurant who is tasked to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for a customer. How do you make it? You now have details of ingredients, the type of ingredients, the steps, and you have a lot more detail. And so I would encourage you to try to do a shorter prompt, a shorter example, and then see what happens when you give the AI, the generative AI tool, a lot more detail. And there's a fine line depending on what you need, but this is just one example. To conclude, the course on prompt engineering has 3 main takeaways. The first is that no matter what the prompt, you have to make sure that you verify the content and have multiple iterations. The second is that every prompt is going to need a little bit of editing, a little bit of help, and it's going to take some time to get it to the shape it needs to be. And even then, you might need to work on it offline, off of the generative AI tool. And number 3, great prompts are rooted in providing the task, the context, and the output for the generative AI tool, and using a fully iterative process that allows for verification and appraisal by the human in the loop.